Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a better Trickery Domain Cleric build in Baldur's Gate 3's patch 8. Let's face it, Trickery Domain is not amazing. The blessing of the Trickster here is a concentration that gives advantage on stealth checks. You can get that by being a Lightfoot halfling or by wearing the Graceful Cloth, which you can get in Act 1, so without requiring concentration, you can get advantage on stealth. So if you really want that, there's better ways of getting it. So I'll show off a powerful build. We'll be pairing this with the Bladesinging Wizard as we can get an extra attack and make this more of a melee stealth blade kind of character, and it actually works very well. So we got the Blessing of the Trickster here, Charm Person, and Disguise Self. Disguise Self is especially useful to, if you want to be funny, change Shadowheart into a Gith to be able to get weapons that are only for the Gith, but that's really the biggest benefit of Disguise Self. Also, you can use it with Speak with the Dead if you took out a character and you want to speak with them with your player character. As for our ability scores, starting off we would go 16 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, and 16 Wisdom. And then we got to make a decision because we do require some Intelligence as well. So the Dexterity Gauntlets can be a great item to add in here because you can take this down to 8 and then put it puts your Dexterity up to 18, then you put those points into your Intelligence to take it up to 16, or later in the game you have the Constitution Amulet. And also at the early game, there is the circlet of intelligence that you can use. There's lots of ways that we can mitigate having a low intelligence, like the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power, which actually works very well with this build. So we can roll with a lower intelligence, but I would recommend having at least one dump stat. Level 2 gets our Channel Divinity, which the Tempest Domain has the best Channel Divinity. We got one of the worst. So we got Invoke Duplicity here. Distract your enemies with an illusion. Within 3 meters of the illusion, attack rolls have advantage for you and your allies. It's great to give your teammates advantage on their attacks, but there's so many ways to get advantage that don't require concentration. But we also got the Turn Undead, so this can be useful in certain situations. For our prepared spells, I would recommend having Sanctuary can be nice as a bonus action to stop targets from receiving damage. Create a Restore Water is good if you have another caster on your team to do cold or lightning spells. I'd recommend Command. This is going to be one of our most powerful spells early on in the game. And we also want to have one heal, so Healing Word. If you have a downed ally, you can pick them up with this as long as you don't get counterspelled. Guiding Bolt's pretty good for damage 46. Also, Inflict Wounds is not bad, but I would recommend having Bless as a better concentration for most options in the early game, or Shield of Faith if you want to have a bit of extra survivability. Into level 3 here, we get our Trickery Domain spells. Mirror Image is actually pretty good. This will give you a +9 to your armor class, which will give you a lot of extra survivability. Pass Without Trace is a concentration that gives a +10 bonus to stealth checks. So now we have 3 concentrations that are going to be for giving advantage on stealth, or the +10 to stealth checks, or also the one that's going to give advantage on attack rolls. We got a lot to manage here. Now, once we get level 2 spells, I'd recommend grabbing Hold Person, which is another enchantment spell like Command that's going to be extremely powerful in this build. Later on, we'll be able to use a specific item that we can cast these as a bonus action if we so please, making us actually quite an effective like rogue character because we can go and take out them with magic and then attack them. I also recommend having Spiritual Weapon here, but we can always take that at our next level. One of the biggest benefits the Cleric gives is actually Spirit Guardians. You'll see that in a moment. We're just going to go with, I guess, Guidance for our next cantrip. And I took Bursting Sinew, Told the Dead, and Sacred Flame for our cantrips at level 1. And for our next level spell, as I mentioned, Spiritual Weapon is a great choice. Now we got an option to go with here. Alert for the +5 initiative is always a great option because going first sometimes means that you win the encounter. Spell Sniper to get Eldritch Blast and increase critical hit chance can be another good option mid-game if you wanted that extra force damage there. And an ability score improvement. Now, I done my Constitution, I'll be using the Amulet, but again, Dexterity Gauntlets can be a good choice as well. And then you're going to want to take up either your Wisdom or your Intelligence there. So we can go with something like that. It keeps things balanced as well. Early game, better to go with your increase to Wisdom. At level 5, again, we now get access to one of the best spells in the game with Spirit Guardians. We want to pair this with another spellcaster so that we can use this as an upcast if we wanted to. But another reason being is that Spirit Guardians can, if we were to mix this with the Rogue, we wouldn't really get the max benefit out of this because it's better as it goes up in higher level. And the Wizard allows us to learn some extra spells on top of that. I'd also recommend grabbing another Mass Healing Word. If you like Undead, Animate Dead can be nice. Glyph of Warding is another nice spell to have, especially as if you're playing Shadowheart, she can't be hit by magical sleep, so you can drop this at your feet anytime you get surrounded by enemies and can put them all to sleep, as that's not a bad option to go with at times because sleep is very powerful. Level 6 gives us our Channel Divinity Cloak of the Shadows. Wrap yourself in shadows, become invisible if you are obscured, and we get 2 Channel Divinities now. Now, the Cloak of Shadows is okay. Basically, it's an invisibility, so if you attack, cast a spell, take an action, or take damage, you become visible again. So that's something to keep in mind. This has its uses. Now, one of the biggest benefits of a Trickery Domain Cleric is actually in D&D, kind of similar to the Rogue. They have different options outside of combat that are very useful. Stealth being something that's a little bit different. And yeah, in a video game, it's kind of lost a bit. So another spell that's not bad to have here is Silence, because we can kind of go the Mage Killer route and make targets not able to cast spells. Blindness is not bad too as well, and even Aid, because you can take Aid and then also use your higher level spell slots and use something like the Staff of Spell Power to give everyone extra 25 health. So you got a few other options there, but I like having Mass Healing Word here. Now, another thing that's good about this is you can prepare your spells at any time as a cleric, so not to worry. If you want to swap out spells, just always have Spirit Guardians unlocked. Our Trickery Domain spells are dimensioned or in polymorph, and you can start to see what I'm talking about with the Trickery Domain not being fantastic. So now we're going to add in the Wizard, which gives us some really good options like Booming Blade, which will take our main hand weapon and add a 1d8 of thunder at this point, and eventually it'll be a 2d8 at level 11, and they'll take a 3d8 at level 11 as well when they move. We also want to have Mage Hand. Mage Hand's really good because we can use this to throw water bottles if we want to use lightning spells. We can also use this to throw healing potions and give ourselves a backup healer. And Mirror Image is also a nice spell to go with too, because you can use this as kind of a trickery. You pull targets away from you, and then you use your stealth to get away. This is actually probably the best option here. I normally like to take damage cantrips, but I actually think for this one, we want a melee attack. We want to have our magical hand to help out, and Minor Illusion's really good. You could also have another character use Minor Illusion for you, but for a stealth-based character, as funny as this is a good choice. If you want a melee spell, go with, or if you want a damage spell, go with Bone Chill or Shocking Grasp, but at this level, you'll likely be using your cantrips, or you'll be using your spells or Booming Blade. And for spells, at this point, we can also take spells from scrolls. So once we hit level 7, we can scribe Fireball, we can scribe Lightning Bolt, but we're going to be taking Shield, Magic Missile. Mage Armor can be good too if you want to use a clothing like the Graceful Cloth, which will give us advantage on dexterity checks without requiring our concentration. Blind Familiar is good too. Grease and Fog Cloud is also great for the extra stealth. You can blind people, and then we can also use specific items to be able to see in that. And Chromatic Orbs is good to cover all damage types, but if you don't want that, you can go with Thunderwave or Longstrider. And for the prepared spells, always have Shield equipped, and we'll take something like that. I like to have a Find Familiar, because even if you don't take Minor Illusion, you can use the Cat, which has the same function. The Cat can group enemies together. At level 2 here, Wizard, we get to take the Bladesinging, Training in War and Song, Proficiency in Light Armor, and Performance Skill, and you get Dagger, Sickle, Short Sword, Rapier, Scimitar, and Longsword proficiency. And then the Blade Song, which will give us a +3 to our armor class and give us advantage on acrobatics and a +2, eventually +3 to Constitution saving throws. We can also take a couple more spells, so Longstrider. You can also learn spells from scrolls. And we'll take our, I guess, whatever really you care to take. Piercing damage is going to be the best because there's items in late game that'll actually double our piercing damage. Now we get level 2 with some really good choices. Misty Step is always good on anybody, and Scorching Ray is great damage. But if we want to really take advantage of what this class has to offer with stealth, Shadowblade is the stealth weapon of the game with patch 8. But we'll leave it off for here. You don't have to use Shadowblade. Every time I take Shadowblade, I always get a comment regarding it. But for a Trickery Domain Cleric, I think this is fair. We don't have a solid melee weapon option, and it's just going to be a powerful choice for us. Bone Chill I would recommend for our next cantrip to stop target from receiving healing. And if you haven't got out to Act 2 yet, that's going to be very useful there. I would also recommend Shocking Grasp or Ray of Frost too, and even Friends if you're the face of the party. But here we're going to take Shadowblade. You don't have to, but Shadowblade and Darkness kind of work very well together. This is a concentration that we can use if we have Darkness Vision. This is very useful to do. Shadowblade gets powered up in Darkness, and it makes us a true Trickery Domain Cleric with our our stealth and every ability kind of gets synergetic here. So I like to have those two together, but you can also go with invisibility here as well if you want an extra way to go invisible without using your channel divinity. And even like the web spell can be somewhat useful in certain instances. Even like if you want to go with some of the other spells here, it's your choice. Clouded Dagger's never a bad choice, but I think these two actually go very well together. And we're going to take Shadowblade. We'll leave off Darkness because we can get that from other means. Now at this level, we can go with an ability score improvement to go all the way in on our intelligence there, and or on our wisdom. The reason we want to go with an increase for our intelligence is that we can prepare more spells, and we give a better spell save DC on our wizard spells, which we can also learn things like Odaluk's Freezing Sphere, Chain Lightning, Disintegrate, whatever you really want to learn. Another good choice actually is going with the dual wielder, because this allows us to take an offhand type of stat stick or anything like that, so we can use 2 weapons per hand. And with Blade Song we can do that because we can't have a shield in our offhand, so this will give us an additional armor class while we're wielding something in the offhand, which is not a bad option, honestly. That's pretty solid. Alert again is always good, or an intelligence increase. I'm gonna go with the dual wielder here just because there is some cool synergies that we can use here, which I'll show off. And once we make it to level 5 wizard, we get access to some of the strongest spells in the game. I would recommend having counterspell too. This is going to be one that you want to have early. Lightning bolt has huge area of effect. It's actually larger than fireball, but take whichever of these you prefer. I always recommend taking counterspell as soon as possible. And haste is another good spell, but we're also able to learn spells from scrolls, so we can always override a lot of these other options that we have. Once we hit level 6, this is when we get our extra attack. Now we can do 2 attacks, and this is perfect to use Shadow Blade with. In addition, you can also take the 6 levels of wizard at any time if you want that extra attack. The cleric contributes spirit guardians heavily and the spell casting levels. And at this point, we'll take, I guess, fireball and haste. You can get scrolls of haste and other scrolls here as you find necessary. But the thing is, since we have only level 3 spells here, it doesn't really matter. We're going to learn and remove a lot of those there. As far as armor goes, I think the Dark Justiciar air plates go well if you want to be an evil character. So with this, you get advantage on stealth checks while obscured, which actually works well with the Justiciar Scimitar. Whenever you attack with advantage, you have a chance of blinding your target. This is thematic. You can also add in I wouldn't recommend Dark Justiciar boots because that Shadow Teleport actually takes an action, not a bonus action, and is medium armor. Kind of weird. The Disintegrating Nightwalkers is better with their Misty Step and the advantages of not slipping on ice or getting ensnared. Boots of Stormy Clamor too if you want to go with an ability drain build because that'll stack reverberation on your attacks. But even late game Hellas boots are kind of nice. I just think that Disintegrating Nightwalkers work perfectly here for some stealth and teleportation. The Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power is going to be the best choice here if we're going to be using lots of Booming Blades and lots of Shadow Blades. Main Shadow Blade attacks will stack Arcane Acuity here. In addition, Booming Blade is a cantrip with a weapon attack. Smites are another source of that, but if we do a main hand attack with Shadow Blade, that's going to pair that. Again, you don't have to use Shadow Blade, so some other options, as mentioned, is the Gloves of Dexterity. You can even go with the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets because it has the Beckoning Darkness, which is not a bad bonus action, which causes the target to take a 2d8 of necrotic damage if obscured in the next turn, and all our main hand attacks will deal additional necrotic. So you can add some green attacks there for some, I guess, not really trickster, but poison-esque coloring. It's not true poison, but Wondrous Gloves too are not bad to give yourself an extra armor class and Bardic Inspiration, which you can't use, but the armor class is nice too if you have no other options. Hellas Gloves is always additional damage die, and spellcasting is never a bad choice, but I think the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power is probably the best gloves here if you're going to use Shadow Blade. If you're not going to use Shadow Blade, the Ballast Armor with a piercing weapon will be likely the best option because the more piercing that you can get is better because it'll be doubled due to the Ballast Armor, so Nirolna's not a bad option as silly as it sounds. It adds additional thunder damage too, but that's not a bad weapon. If you really want to go all in on the blade singing kind of aspect, the Shard Spear, or if you want to go all in on the darkness aspect, the Shard Spear of the Evening is great, although you can't use your blade song while in this, so that's one unfortunate part, but you can put it in your offhand, so that's another kind of cool combination here. So if we wanted to, let's say, you can use a staff to be able to give yourself a free Shadow Blade as well, which is kind of a nice option. And then I guess another thing I should mention is I'll finish the rest of the armor first. The Cloak of Cunning Broom is cool because whenever you disengage, you create a fog cloud. So outside of combat, this is actually a really useful item. I would recommend it just for certain instances. If you want to be extra stealthy, you can just go and hit your disengage, and that's just going to create a cloud. So you can steal from merchants, do whatever you need to do. That's not actually the true best cloak. The best would probably be the Deathstalker Mantle if you have a Dirge on your team, or the Cloak of Protection is for the increased armor class. The Diadem of Arcane Synergy is nice because Booming Blade will give you your Intelligence modifier or Wisdom modifier added to your melee attacks. So that's a good option. Early game, Haste Helmet, which will give us up 4.5 meters of movement speed. Arcane Acuity Helmet, always a good choice. And even the Helmet Baldur, if you want to use heavier, or I guess we can't wear medium armor or blade singing, but the Cloak Hooded Weave for the increased spell attack rolls is good. And even early game, as mentioned, you can use Intelligence by taking this, the Headband of Intelligence. So level 5 of the Cleric, adding this item on, and then your 6th level being the Wizard, you can then scribe Fireball and Lightning Bolt and cast it with a basically 16 in Intelligence. And the one last set of armor that I would recommend is actually going full clothing and taking the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, which gives you +2 to armor class, And then you also get an unarmed attack reaction. We don't have another really use for a reaction inside of a counterspell would probably be the better use, but it's another option you got, and you get health whenever succeeding on a saving throw. Alternatively to that, you also got the Robe of the Weave, which will give us a +2 armor class and a +1 to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. With this though, you want to make sure that you do cast mage armor in yourself. So if you have a shield of it, or if you have it prepared as a spell, you can always remove it afterwards, which then puts our armor class up a little bit higher. And then we'll even go even higher because of our blade song. But what we want to do here now is we got the staff of the arcane battery staff here. So what we can do is use the free casting, take our shadow blade at max level, and then this will give us a weapon here. And it's funny because now it puts our Marka Heshker in the offhand. But what we'll do is we got this, which is 48 + 3 of psychic damage, and then we can actually put a more powerful weapon in our offhand, like the, as mentioned earlier, if you went with this evil Shadowheart version, you get this here, which will give you blind immunity. So we can now use the darkness and see within it. So that can be really good as well. If you aren't going evil, Rhapsody is not a bad weapon. And even pairing a Shadow Blade, or if you just went without it, the Knife of the Undermountain King is nice because it does piercing damage and gives advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets. And we're stealth based, so we want to obviously use stealth as much as possible. The Orin's daggers are another good option. Even the Cold Snap will give us an additional armor class when it's in the offhand there, which puts our armor class up even higher to 21 there. So that can be a good choice too. And then with our Blade Song, we will get our armor class up to 24. So the Cold Snap's not a bad choice. It'll also deal additional cold damage. So you can use the Snowburst Ring to be able to make ice surfaces below enemies, which you won't slip on. So this just depends on your level of if you want cold damage, if you want the blindness, if you want to use Shadow Blade. There's a lot of weapons here that we can use. For rings, we also got the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which will allow us to do enchantment, command, and hold person as bonus actions. And paired with the Gloves of the Battle Mage's Power, we won't have any issue with hitting them. And then also the Caustic Band will just give us extra damage. You don't have to take this though. There's other good spells like any of the spells that'll give you damage on lightly or heavily obscured targets, like the Shadow Cloak Ring. That's really good because it's just going to give you additional 1d4 on most of our attacks. And then the Strange Conduit Ring will give you 1d4 of psychic damage when we concentrate on a spell. So if we have darkness up, we have hold person up, we get additional damage on that. So that can be good too. I also like to have offhand crossbow like the Nairmister there, which can get extra damage die from being lightly obscured due to this. So that gives us an extra nice option for damage. You do have to be proficient, so you have to be like a drow, I guess, if you want to have that proficiency, because we don't get it naturally. Otherwise, you could take the Hellrider longbow for that +3 to initiative. Don't forget to learn spells from scrolls too, so you can take like Ice Storm, you can take Cone of Cold, you can take Oluf's Freezing Sphere, you can take Chain Lightning. So on turn 1, if you're able to get your invoke duplicity out at first, this will give you the advantage on attack rolls. It is a small 3-meter radius, so yeah, you're not very likely to get that off against a lot of targets. So that's where I'd recommend actually going with something more powerful as a concentration, like Hold Person and even Spirit Guardians. This is likely going to be our best option, but for our first turn in combat, we got to take out as many targets as possible and create some sort of crowd control as well. So with this, we're going to be likely, if you have Oluf's Freezing Sphere, this is going to be your best option because you can see here we're able to hit massive number of targets here, and what on top of this we'll do is create difficult terrain. So that's 5 targets in the area there. So it's not a bad option for our first turn in combat if we can create not only crowd control but also create, and we tripped a few people too, so that'll eat up their movement speed. Now, I guess we should also have our Blade Song up as well. We're not able to get any extra advantage off on attacks, so we want to use something a little bit more powerful. This is useful at times, the Illusionary Double, but yeah, most times it's not actually going to be a big benefit. Same as the Blessing of the Trickster, it's only very situational. The best use is actually the Turn Undead, which is kind of funny for this, but now we got to make an option. I also precasted and put up a Mirror Image, which gives us a 34 armor class, so that we're much harder to hit, not in tankiness, but just overall speed and ability to avoid being attacked. We also get a darkness casting too from our staff or our spear there, so that can be even better. We got crowd control there, and then we got extra survivability. So in a true trickster faction, we're gonna pop that down because that's really not that great, I'll be honest. And then on top of this, we got a bonus action ability, so we can protect a teammate with Sanctuary. We got Misty Stuff, we need to make it to our darkness, and then we got an offhand attack, which is not a bad choice because the target's gonna be blinded. So extra 12 damage, not too shabby. And we're just going to be safe in our darkness there. So yeah, we can use that for survivability's sake. One of the biggest benefits of a wizard is getting shield. That's going to help you a lot of the time. We already have an extremely high armor class, but that just helps out. Now we got a chance to start stacking up our arcane acuity. So turn off dual wielding. It's just a good idea not to have it up. We get that additional 1d4 of damage from the shadow cloaked ring here, which is nice because we got our darkness set up, so we can just go with the main hand attack. And that 50 damage becomes a lot higher if you have the resonance stone. So if you have a teammate that has it, you can always just grab it and give it to yourself here, and that's just going to give everyone near us a weakness to the psychic damage, so we'll now deal double damage and likely one-shot most targets. Yeah, nice 60 damage there. You always go and protect your teammates, especially if you got other casters there, because yeah, 124 on that attack. That is crazy. So yeah, we had a crazy high armor class. We also can't slip on ice, so that's nice. We can go sneak up on other targets and then stab them with our shadowy blade there. 72 damage. I unfortunately got mine broken by going too close to the gate. That was pretty unfortunate, but we also got booming blade to be able to do a little extra damage as well. And once we get the arcane cutie, we only have 3 stacks. Unfortunately, we lost it getting attacked while we got mine broken there, but we get our spell save DC up a lot higher. And what that means is we got a very effective spell with hold person, so we can just shut down multiple targets at a time. And what's great about this is they skip their turns, we can do critical hits against them at close range, and this is going to make things a lot easier for us. So then we can do an offhand attack against one of them. Not going to be the most, but that's an extra 26 damage, and we're not hasted anymore, so that kind of sucks. And then all of our other teammates can join in on the fun too, because attacks against close range, that one's not held. And we get someone right up in our face here, so that's a good opportunity to just go with a booming blade there to likely, yeah, 62 damage there. Perfect. And we got to follow that up with another attack, so we're going to use this against this target here. And we do have bonus action command spells, or we can use a bonus action command, so that was enough to take them out. They're close. 14 damage will likely take it out with an offhand attack. If not, command wouldn't have been a bad option. If they have a high wisdom though, so they'll save on that. And they have 1 health left, of course. And now we just have 2 targets over here, and I can't run back there, so that's why it's nice to have all these spells that a wizard gets. So something like Scorching Ray Upcast, never a bad idea. If we were closer to them, we could get that extra damage off. That's not going to be enough. We got to get into a better position. Scorching Ray just being a really useful spell because it does an attack roll, so it can crit, and that's super useful against targets like that get held, and that wasn't even enough to take out either of them, so that's unfortunate. But the beautiful thing about this is you can also use spells from scrolls, because we have a decent spell save DC there, and that wasn't enough to take out the last target there, but that's okay. And this should be enough there to finish them off. Perfect. And we have one last attacker hiding back here. Our always best option will be to use Shadow Blade for an attack, because that, you see there, 70 damage on that, pretty crazy. Now, I didn't get to really enhance and use the darkness there, but that's a really good option too, because darkness, you can get advantage on all your attack rolls, and it's what a trickster would use. So yeah, this is a better version of the Trickery Domain Cleric, multi-class, doing more blade slinging, bade singing, whatever you want to call it. We're slinging blades with this build. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.